What are we looking for from a new piece of art? What we're looking for is something that tells us something new about ourselves that we didn't know previously. Something that sheds light on how we view culture, how we view sound. I think we're looking for a new musical language to tell us something, to teach us about the human condition.
I've known you for 10 years now. This is Will Shaub, by the way. He's the concertmaster of the Knoxville Symphony. That's where we're at, right?
That's where we're at, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Place I've never been before.
2 hours from everything.
And we met at a little place called Juilliard. And the funny thing was we were trying to debate whether we were in the same suite or not, because I don't quite remember, but for sure we were eating breakfast and lunch a lot together.
In the same cafeteria, right next to Samuel Adler.
Right next to Sam Adler.
Who else?
Right.
Corigliano.
I don't think Corigliano would ever show up at the cafeteria.
I think I saw him eating soup once.
Really?
I don't know why you would choose that.
There. I've seen Christopher Rouse a lot.
Ah, okay.
But what I think is interesting, which we were just talking about, was you're a violinist, obviously, and we've known each other for 10 years, but this is the first time you're playing any of my music.
That's right.
Right? So I'm like really interested to know, actually, and because most of the people I think that watch this are composers. First of all, why even commission a composer, right? Because this is a commission, the orchestra has asked you to find somebody, right? Basically, why even, let's just start there. Why even commission a piece of music, like from your perspective as a performer? I know from my perspective as a composer, I'm like, yes, please commission
Of course.
me. But from your perspective, that's what I want to know. Why is it important to commission a composer, especially a brand new piece of music?
This really gets to the root of everything, which is what are we looking for from a new piece of art? And what we're looking for is something that tells us something new about ourselves that we didn't know previously. Looking for something that sheds light on how we view culture, how we view sound, or how we hear sound. And I think we're looking for a new musical language to tell us something, to teach us about the human condition. And I think that with your piece, with your new violin sonata, we hear that. We hear a new musical language, familiar to you, unfamiliar to me, unfamiliar to our audience, and now we get to share that. And that really is what music is. It's an act of sharing and of passion, and happiness is served best when shared.
What you said about finding something unfamiliar to you is interesting to me, because my first thinking would be a performer would want to play something familiar, which is what you guys usually do. So what was unfamiliar about what I was doing that attracted you? And the reason I'm asking this, right, is for, when composers are writing, I think a lot of us tend to, myself included sometimes too, we tend to write things that are safe sometimes because we think that's what a performer wants.
Sure.
But I don't think that's what you wanted from me. You're like saying, no, I want you to really write this thing like to its maximum potential. But you wanted to play whatever I wrote. Those were your instructions to me.
Well, I like to be a bit of a test pilot, rather than safety first.
That's a good quote.
I'd rather fly a little bit dangerously.
Yeah.
No, I think that the elements of your piece, the fundamental compositional techniques, are what make it so new and interesting. Look at the different flavors you're giving me. Microtones, different shades of microtones, dynamics that are very, very quick. A lot of subito dynamics in your music, actually, and not necessarily something as simple as a subito piano, but a subito diminuendo into a new section of the piece that you were not expecting. So for me as the performer, I'm looking to bring these things out and highlight them and show the audience, look, you weren't expecting this. How do you feel now? And in your sonata, there's so many possibilities for that. And me and my pianist, Kevin Klass, in our rehearsal process, we're looking to find these and ask ourselves, how can we communicate them technically and then interpret them expressively?
What I found interesting was you guys been rehearsing this a lot without me, right? And I just came in at the very end, I think for like half an hour or something, 45 minutes, and I gave my final little touches, right? It's just amazing how much you can do on your own without my involvement. I kind of love that, actually, to be honest with you.
That was the first thing you said, actually, was you guys worked really hard on this, which I appreciate because So
we talked a bit about 10 years ago. That's how we met. We met at school. A lot of us composers meet our musicians at school, either at school or at concerts, mainly like in those two avenues. or friends of friends, things like that. But there's been a 10-year gap. Obviously, we've been in touch here and there. What was the impetus, I guess, from saying, hey, I know Saad, because you know a lot of composers, right? We were even talking about a few other composers we know. You know Saad, why commission him? The reason I'm asking this question, composers out there, they got to think about this scenario for themselves, right? Like, why would somebody want to commission me, right? Why would somebody want to play my music, right? Because I think as composers, sometimes we're a little bit in our own heads and we think, I don't want to use the word entitled because I don't like that word, but we look at like the past composers and we're like, I want to be like that. And people just play their music. But for us living composers, it's not that simple, right? So there's a 10-year gap there, and then other composers. So like, what are some of the traits you're looking for when you're searching for a composer?
Saad, I think the first thing I look for is a composer that really believes in themselves and really believes in their work and what makes it unique. And you're not afraid to talk about that. The elements of your music that are unique, that are a little bit different, which is not to say that you don't observe traditions. But I think that the first thing I'm seeking is authenticity that I'm excited about bringing forward. And I think that is a differentiating factor. But also, there's certain, products that we buy as consumers or buyers that are emotional purchases.
Okay.
Yes. A pair of Jordans, you don't need that pair of shoes. That's an emotional purchase.
Right.
Oh, that Rolex watch, that's an emotional purchase. You didn't need that. You could tell the time on your phone.
Right.
I think there is an element of that in commissioning a piece.
Okay.
It's a bit of a romantic idea. And for composers, I would simply say observe that. What does it mean for something to be a romantic purchase? Because maybe you view your music that way, like this is something that somebody doesn't necessarily have to play. I want them to want to play it. And I think that's something worth thinking about.
The first thing, I've heard before a lot, you're looking for something authentic. You're looking for, by you, I mean musician, right? You're looking for something unique. It doesn't mean it has to ignore the tradition, and you have to be confident about what you're doing too, which is something we as composers have a problem with, I think, because musicians have a problem with this too. The idea of like not feeling like you're good enough to play X
Imposter
music.
syndrome.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have all these great violinists that came before you, obviously, but you have to sort of ignore that and just play. And we as composers, I think it's harder for us actually, because we naturally are like on our own most of the time, just writing in a corner. So it's easy for us to just be thinking about how crap our music is, So I think that confidence thing has to be pursued intentionally, which I feel like I've had to do.
Larry Ratcliffe, conductor. Yes. He used to say, you have to love it more than it's hard.
That's a good quote.
And you can apply that to composition and, of course, to performance, but you have to love it more than it's hard. And there's definitely an element of perseverance. Saad, you have not been a composer for 2 weeks. You've been in this for a very long time and have succeeded at the highest levels. And I notice that. I see the hard work and the output, the music that you're putting forward. And it's a big catalog. These things tend to grow and develop. So as a performer, we kind of want to be a part of that too. I want to be a part of your story and the arc that you're creating with your musical language, your catalog of pieces. Now, your violin sonata, now I'm a part of that story by premiering it here. I think that's part of the emotional purchase.
I never thought of it, but actually the way you describe it, I've never thought about it that way, as an emotional purchase. Because I think that we as composers, we already think of it as emotional ourselves. We don't think that somebody else might view it that way too. Like me investing all this time is emotional in a way. No one's putting a gun to my head saying, hey, write music,
No. And no one's putting a gun to your head saying, go climb Everest. Right. We're climbing it because it's there.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're climbing this violin sonata because it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish more composers thought of it in this way, that I love that what you say here about the musician is part of the story too, not just the composer. Because, you go to these concerts, you guys play Tchaikovsky, you guys play Brahms, you guys play Beethoven, and that's what you see on the ticket or on the banner. It's Tchaikovsky, right? That's the name they see first, right? But with a living composer, you're right. It's a bit more equal, actually. It's you and it's me. And that is like the biggest thing, more than anything else.
It's a team effort.
Yeah.
If you're on a basketball team, why do you play hard for your teammates? right? I mean, you have this shared goal in front of you. I think that's what you and I have together tonight and tomorrow. We have this shared goal in front of us. So let me ask you this. What is it like to hear your piece performed for the very first time? What was that like today?
It's always like amazing and also very surprising. Surprising what things are right and what things are not so right. But then there's a part of me that's always like filtering. This is kind of hard to explain, but let me see if I can explain. Me as a composer 15 years ago would be trying to point out every little mistake. I remember having I'd have a printed score in front of me with the highlighter and stuff, highlight every freaking thing and go one by one, right? I used to do that. Nowadays, I don't do that as much. In fact, like today, I didn't even bring the score. I just had it on my laptop. I didn't have a pencil or anything. And I really just tried to listen macroscopically. And then I thought, okay, which battles do I think are achievable today? So a couple things that we pointed out. And then I said, the rest of it, just leave it on the back burner because it's not important right now for what we need to accomplish today, which is the premiere. All the other things we'll talk about later. 15 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that way.
Sure.
I would have thought every freaking thing needs to be exactly as I thought, otherwise it's a failure. And I think it's easy to fall into that as a composer, but I think we have to be more realistic because the idea is that we want our music to live over a long period of time. And if we act like that person I was 15 years ago, no one's gonna wanna work with you.
Sure.
You know?
Well, it felt like a conversation today.
Right.
And actually, that's kind of what the dialogue between performers and composers is long term. It's like a long-term conversation. We may have a conversation over a piece of chamber music someday. That's
Right.
not this piece. But I would say one piece of unsolicited advice that I would give composers is what you're hearing on Sibelius or Finale or, a MIDI file, that is so different than what you will hear in the room. And I think that's a good thing. Whenever I hear a MIDI file, and I always appreciate a composer taking the time to send it to me. But when I hear it, I'm always thinking, okay, it sounds like notes on a page.
Yeah.
And I'm here to give it line and shape
Yeah.
and direction. And as a composer, I would say expect that. Look for a different fluency, coming from the performer. It's not going to be the same, But I feel like as you can predict that more and more, your music's going to get better and better.
And there's things in it that I didn't see before. And some of the way you phrase things, I didn't see before. Some of the way you bow things, I don't see before. And even like, for example, the second movement, it's a very slow movement. There are things you were doing and I didn't think of doing. For example, I don't want to get too technical, but it's basically ABA. A is very glacial, very non-vibrato sort of thing. And then you get into this lower section that has a little bit more life with the vibrato. And then you go back to the very sensitive vibrato thing. To me, when I initially wrote that movement, I was just thinking straight up, no vibrato. And then when you hear the MIDI, you're like, yeah, that's what it sounds like. Yeah. But then you were saying, no, I want to add how can I add my own thing to it? And I think that was the difference, to make it something I didn't intentionally think it should be in the beginning, but I kind of like it. And this is really important, I think, and why we compose music to begin with for people is that we know, hey, it's going to be for a person at the end of the day. It's not just for me. To me, actually, it's more selfish to just write for you in the room. You know what I mean? Like to think of yourself like Mahler writing in the cottage, I actually think it's kind of selfish in a way.
Sure.
Although Mahler was a conductor and all this stuff, and he knew what the players could do. I don't have that breadth of knowledge, right? I'm not in front of musicians every day, so.
See, I like to think of it this way too. Take a great series, Lord of the Rings. Tolkien, of course, is the author of the Lord of the Rings, and as the author, he is the owner of that universe, and Tolkien is all over every single page. Every word he's thought of, every sentence he's constructed. I mean, everything about it has Tolkien written all over it. But is he in that story? No. Tolkien himself is not in that story. You could think, if you believe in God, God would be the creator of the universe. Is he in the universe? No. To think of him that way would be a category error. So I think the question is, you're the composer. You're all over the page. Right. You're all over the violin sonata. But now as the performers, where do we fit in? Are we part of that story, or are we the new author? And I think about this a lot, and I think it's it's not a black and white thing, but it's something where sometimes I'm 70% the author and you're 30%. Yeah. And sometimes you're 90% and I'm 10% Tolkien in this moment.
I quite like that.
But I think there's a gray area here.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I love it. Any way that the pressure is off me, that's great. I think it's just more fun.
So let me ask you this. I feel like I'm going to generalize for fun. This is not necessarily true, but I'm going to generalize. Maybe there are academic composers that operate mostly in the classroom, theory classes, etc. And then maybe there are composers that do a lot more composing, conducting. You might see their music more in concert halls. I don't think it's a clear distinction, but you see what I'm saying. Yeah. Say hypothetically, say you're doing a lot of teaching, a lot of classroom work. Is it weird? Is it different to then come into a performance environment and need to speak to the audience, work with performers? Is there any difference in worlds for you, or do you feel like, no, it's completely natural, I operate in both worlds?
For me, it's natural only because I've been doing it a long time, both things. I gotta lead with that caveat. Anything that it seems natural that I do is because I've been doing it for a long time. You have to be shit awful for a long time to look like you're a natural. You got to be painfully awful. Let me give you I'll get back to your question, but let me give you an example. When I started teaching at Columbia, which is like my day job, I started teaching like actual classes, right? As part of my doctoral studies, I had my own classroom, okay? Nobody over my head, it's just me and the 20 kids. First couple years, holy crap, I would get these reviews back because you write your little review. They were god-awful reviews. I was like thinking, wow, I really suck at teaching. And I agreed too. They would say, oh, I don't know why this person is our teacher. I swear to you, and they would write these comments on my thing. And, so much of this was irrelevant, or, he only talked about X type of music. Actually, it was mostly like medieval Renaissance music I was talking about.
Oh, wow.
Well, not modern music.
Some of my favorite, actually.
Yeah. Things like that, really harsh things, but they were true. But then the last couple of years, I've been getting comments, this professor is the best professor I've had at Columbia.
Wow.
The reason I'm saying that is like, oh yeah, he must have been good teacher. No, I worked at it. I recognized I was absolute horseshit. And instead of saying, you know what, I don't, this teaching thing is not for me, I said, no. There's something to this teaching thing. I just haven't cracked it yet, right? Same thing with talking to audiences here. Right? Or audiences in academia. They are very different audiences. We can't pretend they're the same, which is fine. You got to be able to know who's in front of you. I'm not going to speak the same way to people that come to a symphony orchestra that are expecting Brahms, the same way of going to some underground new music concert in New York where it's just my colleagues there that have doctorates in music. Sure. You cannot expect that the audience is the same. So we need to know who's in the room and tailor our conversation. That being said, you're not going to be good at it the first time. No. And everybody's going to have their own way of doing it, and that's fine. But you just have to accept you're going to be shit, and it's fine.
You're right. No, there's no question.
Like, there's no problem with it. But don't feel any shame, because just know that, hey, I'm shit at this, and I'll keep doing it until I get better. And that's fine. And if people are making fun of you, screw them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've had so many people I've heard down the line talk behind my back. I don't care, because I know I'm getting better while they're not. You see what I mean?
Could not agree more. It's about perseverance and believing in your mission.
Yeah.
You're right. And you wouldn't talk to your priest the same way you talk to the firefighter, same way you talk to your mom.
Like anything else in life, yeah. Why do we pretend it's the same in music? I just don't get it. But it's everybody else. And I think me and you share the same thought about this. We have to be cognizant of what's around us. Yes. And this is just a human thing. This is not a composer thing.
Oh, I could not agree more.
A musician thing. But what about you? I mean, what I find interesting about this concert, you have Brahms, you have me, and you have Zelda.
Yes.
And you have Tchaikovsky.
Yes.
So bringing the Zelda in is interesting, but that's personal to you.
It is personal to me.
That's the thing. You didn't just put it on because, people will like it. You play video games, you like that stuff. Yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about making the program? How does a musician put together a program?
It's such a great question. What we are looking for is, yes, a dinner plate, right? So we have our protein, we have a side dish, we have a dessert. Yes, we're looking for these things. We are also looking for captivating the attention of the listener. So that first piece, you want it to be something welcoming and energetic. If someone's coming into the hall sleepy at 7 p.m., we want to wake them up and have them alert for the next piece. In this case, your sonata would be the next piece after Tchaikovsky's Valse Scherzo. After that, I like to look for something that appeals to a demographic of my audience that maybe I haven't appealed to lately. And I think that's where The Legend of Zelda comes in. I don't know if you played the Breath of the Wild on Nintendo Switch. It's one of my favorite games. When it came out 10 years ago, a lot of people were saying this is so much more than a game. It's an experience. It has musical elements to it. It has this amazing story, has kind of its own universe, its own world. You're cooking food in the game. It left a lasting impression on me, as did the score. So to incorporate that music, I think was important. And I think a lot of people will come away thinking, wow, I've never heard it played that way. And it's a medley, so you hear the Breath of the Wild theme and the Legend of Zelda theme. I arranged it. That's the idea. Intermission, and then Brahms, the C minor piano quartet. And of course, if this is a dinner plate, what are we thinking of this as?
The main entree.
It's the steak. Exactly. It's the main dish. Obviously a standard war horse. Now, part of programming is knowing who the performers are. So in my case, I get to collaborate with my colleagues from the Knoxville Symphony on a big piece of chamber music. I could put a piece of chamber music that is not standard, right? Something like Korngold Piano Quintet, something from the past 20 or 30 years that's not yet standard. But it's also great sometimes to work hard on something that is standard because it's familiar to our musicians. It's something that technically broadens our chops, so to speak, our listening skills, has a familiarity. So there can be a great opportunity for a standard warhorse like that. So does it fit with the rest of the program? We look at that and we say, okay, this is a menu, a dinner plate that we're excited to present. Long story short, that's how I'm looking to program. What do you think? Is that kind of what you're looking for in a program as a listener and as a composer?
I mean, well, as a composer, it's tough on my side because I just want my stuff to be played, right? So frankly speaking, so anytime it's played, it's welcome, even if the program is a little strange, you know. I've been on, I'm not going to say, but I've been on some strange programs where I'm like, really, you paired my piece with that? But at the end of, to be honest with you, at the very end of the day, you're not going to get a perfect, from my perspective, of what's in my mind, a perfect program, you know. For example, I'll give you an example. Like we were talking about this violinist, Nathan Meltzer, right, that we went to school with. To me, you know, from my perspective, perfect program. With this other violin piece that I wrote, it had my piece, and then it had Biber, not Justin Bieber, but the from a few hundred years ago.
The earlier one.
It had scordatura detuned violin, which is what happens in my piece, and then he's got the Ravel Sagan, which starts off very dramatically. The way my piece starts off, I think even the pitches are similar. And to me, like when I think of a program, I'm like, wow, that is like perfectly where my music should fit, right? But importantly, it's not my decision to make the program, right? And it's not going to be exactly what I think, and it shouldn't be what I think, because then it's not authentic to the performer.
Interesting.
You see?
Interesting.
Or the conductor, whoever, right?
Sure.
It's not my show. I'm a piece of that show, and we can't have an ego about it. Like I was saying before, very easy for a composer having the ego, because we see Brahms, we see Beethoven, so we think to ourselves, that's us in 100 years. It's BS. It's still going to be Brahms and Beethoven. It's not going to be no Haddad, I can tell you that.
There might be. I think there will.
Doesn't sound as good as Brahms or Tchaikovsky.
It does. It does. I totally hear what you're saying. And you know what's interesting too, Saad, is that as a concertmaster that is programming music, as a conductor, for the conductors out there who are programming music, oftentimes we have multiple constituencies. Do I view the composer as one of those constituencies? I absolutely do. And I think it's important to factor that in. I actually really do think about that. You know, would it work for this composer and their music and their musical language to work with the rest of the program? And then we're weighing that in addition to the other constituencies that we're looking to fulfill.
Though I've never been asked directly, hey, we're going to program your X piece on a, what do you think would work well with that piece? I've actually never been asked that, which is kind of interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've been told multiple times, and this, for the composers out there, this is an interesting thing. You might not realize this, but I've had many programs, surprisingly, where the program starts with my music. In other words, they decided on my piece first before bringing in the war horses. So they're like, okay, we're going to commission Saad for this concert. What war horse piece would go well around it? Like they would have those conversations, which I thought it would be backward. I thought it would be, they're going to pick the war horse piece. All right, what composer should we commission?
Interesting.
So, I mean, I know it happens both ways, but I'm just here to say that I have heard it happen the other way too, where the living composer is the first thing they think about, and then, okay, let's work backwards from there. I don't know how it happened with this.
That's exactly the way it happened.
Oh, really?
That's exactly the way it happened. I should have asked you, though. I would have been curious to get your opinion more on what would pair well. That's interesting. I need your vote, too. So next time I am going to follow that constituency.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not required, but I just find it interesting. To me, it's all, in some way, to me, it's all a big game. Because at the end of the day, like, I just want my music to be played, and I want it to be played by great people. Like, that's what I call top of umbrella, right? That's what I'm shooting for. And I want the players to feel good about my music. And then everything else that happens underneath, that's just kind of like the way that umbrella gets shaped, if that makes sense. As long as that umbrella is there, that's the big thing for me.
And I've often heard composers say that the only thing harder than getting a first performance of your piece is getting a second performance of your piece.
Unless the premier performer does the second performance, then it's really easy.
Now that makes sense. But I do think it's really important that that second performance happens in third and fourth, because you know what happens. The piece develops enormously, the language develops, and then it evolves into even more music. And I think that's the journey.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you, Saad. You asked such great questions, Saad. And for your audience out there, listen to this man. I do. Listen to his music. Check out the catalog.
If you're here this long, we'll do a little collaboration thing. But check out this guy's YouTube channel. He's got over 1,000 subscribers now. Something like that.
Thank you.
It's very hard to get to 1,000, I can tell you that.
Somehow we made it to 2.
Especially in 2026. Yeah. You're in 2,000?
I'm in the 2s territory now.
I didn't even know. That's news to me.
Grateful to every single person that gives me a listen. I know you are too.
Amazing.
And thanks for having me on your podcast.
Awesome. Thank you.